Hello and welcome to Video Games and the Blockchain. I'm your host Chris Stead, you're watching Crypto Finder TV and we're here to explore all things video gaming and blockchain related. Thanks for taking time out of your day to join us today. I know that Black Ops 4 releases today. Call of Duty, one of the biggest games in the world. I'm sure you're probably aware of it or seen the trailers. No single player this time around. I don't know about that. Call of Duty 2 single player, one of my favourite experiences ever. Modern Warfare as well. Wasn't happy that they ditched it, but apparently the new Blackout mode, I haven't played it myself, but what I've read from a few of my colleagues is that the Blackout mode works quite well. So that's the new Battle Royale style experience they've introduced into the world. So maybe that'll make up for the single player. I doubt it. I love single player campaigns. But anyway, thanks for taking time out of Call of Duty to watch GxB, Video Games and the Blockchain. Now, every single week we talk through the biggest stories in the week in blockchain gaming, no different this week. And we're going to start with our first story now, which is about the game Cats in Mechs. Now, Cats in Mechs is a game that we covered a couple of episodes ago. It's pretty much doing exactly what it says in the name here, but this is a game where you are playing as felines, driving big mech robots. And it's as cool as it sounds, really, from what I've seen so far. So the premise for this is it's developed by MegaCryptoPolis. It's out on iOS and Android. It's going to when it comes out in 2019, with PC to follow slightly later than that. It's set on the planet called Kateria 5. And here there's a resource called Catmint which grows. Catmint is a very valuable resource. Some evil dude wants it, and it's up to you and your feline brethren to kind of beat this bad dude and keep the world safe from the seat of a giant mech. It's very kind of a bright, colourful, neon world, dystopian type of thing, and the entire world's been developed as well. Well, the kind of world level design is developed as if you're a cat, so lots of like ramps and walls and things like that type of thing that you'd see cats usually pouncing around on. Now, the reason why this came onto our radar in a big way was because it's using the Engine coin and cryptocurrency and the blockchain developed by Engine here, which we've covered many times. It's one of our favourite spaces in the blockchain gaming scene, is what Engine is doing for a number of game developers, including MegaCryptoPolis. It's also part of the Engine multiverse, which is something we've covered a couple of times. Now, if you caught our episode last week, we had a good chat with the Touch Hour developers who are working on 9 Lives Arena, who detailed kind of more about how this multiverse is going to work. It's about kind of items that can transition between the various games, of which there's 9 now, and we work in various games. At first we thought that was like an epic sword or something like that, which might work in all games. It's more like an amiibo scenario where there's certain items that all the developers have agreed to acknowledge exist, and those items will have different powers in the game that makes more sense based on the game. So that is kind of how the multiverse is going to work and how it's going to work with Cats in Mechs. Now, the developer has just announced that it's running a competition. One sec.
But I could search the web for it.
My phone decided it wanted to start talking to me. Bill Gates, he keeps trying to get in touch, wants to buy the show. Anyway, the developer has revealed he's running a competition. They're running a competition in which the members of the community, every single time 50 new members join the community, they'll get a box that they'll be able to open on November 19, which will include some various parts for the mechs. Now, obviously, that's where the kind of major customization options come in, how you develop your mechs, how you build your mechs out, and how you kind of make them rare, or what you find and how you customize them will make those kind of mechs rare and give you a kind of value on the secondary market. So these boxes are quite interesting, quite intriguing, kind of see what's going to be in them. When they hit certain milestones like 500 as part of this competition, they're going to give all the members of the community at that point the multiverse item in a multiverse box. So kind of cool little competition there, an interesting way of gaining more members. I really respect MegaCryptoPolis have been proactive with this and trying to get on board with building their community. Now, the other thing they've been releasing information about is how they're going to handle rarity in the game. Obviously, rarity is a massive thing with blockchain gaming and also the secondary market. We already knew that kind of the way that you battle with your mechs and add to that history with your particular mech suit every time you have a battle is going to play a part in creating the rarity of that thing. Like that history is going to be transposed onto your mech. But they're also looking into a new system which I kind of find really intriguing. Reminds me of the old like the way that artists used to deal with their art, or old cards that you used to get, like if you collect sports cards or whatever. And that's a detailed numbering system and addition system. So if you get they might have 1,000 versions of a certain type of item, and they'll be actually numbered 1 through 1,000. And the closer you are to 1, the more powerful the version of that item will be. So it provides this kind of sense of rarity that goes beyond just how many of these things exist, but what production number was it? Like how early in the production of the game was it released? I find that to be really particularly cool. It allows people to strive even deeper, to go even further, try to get a part which is like a bit further up the chain. Imagine having like 1 in like 200,000 of some part or something like that, and that being more powerful than 2, more powerful than 3, way more powerful than 200,000. It's aspirational, it's a good idea, I like it. And the concept of ownership there as well is going to be more powerful, because you're going to feel like you're owning something that's got more value than the guy that's next to you, and that's what we want, you know. So that's Cats in Mechs. Like I said, the competition's running. It's going to November 19. If you join up to their community, you'll be part of that. You'll automatically get something as part of the community every time they level up to 50. So they're encouraging you obviously to share the word and get it out there and about. The game's out in 2019 on mobile and PC. We have a bit of a dev diary here that can explain a little bit more of the game in case you missed it. Mega Studios, take it over.
So, you know, that's like the Cats in the Mechs was, you know, about cats in mechs, and that it feels good to have that kind of thing. But then to be able to pivot those kind of gameplay, it's like the standard gameplay about robots shooting stuff into.
But it didn't always start out like that. Like for original name was Omegatech, right?
The original name was Omegatech, and blah blah big words had no meaning whatsoever. Who cares about Omegatech? And then Aspen's story. Who's Aspen? Why should I care about her story?
Why? Who is Aspen?
Exactly. So
yeah.
You know, it's like taking the character Aspen, just the lead character of the show, and putting that precursor to that is Cats and Mechs. Now you've got an idea like she's a cat and she's in a mech, and this is her story. So it really solidifies the expectations of what's going on.
What is Aspen doing? I mean, she fell from some planet, right? I mean, what does she do?
Well, the origin of Aspen has to do with she's fighting for people to survive an alien invasion.
Okay.
And so they have came out of nowhere, but the more story you uncover, the more you realize that they were booted off the planet 1,000 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And so they've been floating around the universe for a long, long time, but they have a lifespan of 40 years, as opposed to Aspen's people, which have like 120 years.
Okay.
So they multiply a lot very quickly.
So they're like,
So that, they've formed an armada by the time that they've come back after 1,000 years, and they've pillaged off the hundreds and hundreds of planets and been able to amass this massive tech, and they've got really good at invading other planets.
Okay.
So now they've got a message beacon that was somehow came off the planet because of the internal strifes, and one of the houses that was going to fall was a "we need help" kind of beacon, and sent it off into the planetaries. And the guys who heard it were the people who got booted off the planet. And we're like, we're coming back. We've had legends of how we're going to go on our homecoming, and it's like that's our signal. That's our prophecy come true. Huh. And so they follow that signal back home. So now they're invading their home planet, basically.
Wow.
And now you've got this cat civil war. The people that got booted off, and you got the people who are still on it. What people don't really know is that the people who are still on it is the cure to this the 40-year problem that the invaders have. And the invaders, however, are trying to just wipe out all their opposition and subjugate, and they don't know that by cooperating together that they can be one again, be whole. And so that's this subplot that's going on to Aspen's story, is that she's unwittingly uniting these two people together.
All right, so there you go. Cats in Mechs, right from the horse's mouth there. an explanation of how the game works. Okay, on to our second news story, and this is to do with the game Axie Infinity. It's another game that we covered a long time ago on the show. It's part of the crypto collectible space, or at least it starts off looking like that. So obviously CryptoKitties was a big deal when it first came out last November, December period in 2017. But really, you know, despite its success, was kind of a one-dimensional experience, a kind of a hands-off experience. Axie Infinity steps into that crypto collectible concept, but then adds a ton of gameplay around it. So the Axies are like these kind of really super weird-looking creatures. They're made out of lots of disparate parts from animals and mythical creatures and random items as well. There's 6 different classes, which I'll read them out to you. Beast, plant, bug, aquatic, or reptile. The 6 different classes you've got. There's also 2 more classes shrouded in mystery on the website, obviously to be revealed at a later date. Now the parts themselves that you kind of construct these Axies out of come in 4 different forms of rarity, and those parts define the different the stats of each one. So depending on what parts you add, you change the stats of that particular creature, like the hit points and the stamina, those types of things like that, right? So the more you mix and match, and the more you kind of find this various type of Axie, which is kind of unique to you, and because it's all on the blockchain, you own that thing. So the more unique and cool and powerful you make this thing, the more aspirational it is in the secondary market, or just to be a beast in the game yourself. What we've seen just happen in the last couple of days is they've just finally released a battle mode into this game. Now the battle mode is another way of kind of leveling up this type of experience to something we haven't really seen before. It works in a 3v3 scenario, so you've got 3 of your Axies versus 3 of another player's Axies on a kind of a grid pattern. You need to take an active role in how you position them around these grids, because if you certain moves, and the moves are kind of defined by the parts you have. So if you have horns or whatever, horns might give you an area effect spell which may have a certain amount of reach. So you need to position that person or that particular Axie on a certain point in the grid where they can actually make a difference. Prior to going into the combat, you kind of order your Axies in the way that they're going to release their attacks in the turn-based scenario, and that is kind of how you kind of get the strategy involved in the way this world's going to play. When you're not in a battle mode, you'll be kind of caring after these guys and training them up, leveling them up, and at certain experience points you'll also be able to breed them and create new types of Axie that you can then also take into battles as well. It's all going to be animated, and the experience will be earned for winning or losing, which is cool as well. So you don't actually have to go into the game and play someone who's much better than you and come out with nothing. I think that's a good idea. It encourages people to at least get in the action and get a feel and level up their characters, even if they haven't got exactly the parts that they need in the early game to compete, which should make also for a good, decent player pool at the beginning of the game. Everything occurs off-chain with the combat, which is really interesting as well. So because it's based on the Ethereum network, and the Ethereum can get bogged down, as we saw with CryptoKitties, the combat itself is happening off-chain. But then what happens with the experience earned during that combat is that all is recorded on-chain. So they're kind of bridging their gaps there and trying to handle that issue of like the cost of gas for using Ethereum network and just bogging down a network, with a way of allowing the experience to still be unhackable and to still be recorded correctly for all time on the blockchain. This is not the end we're going to see for Axie Infinity either. There's still more plans for it to grow in the future. We understand that it's going to be making use of the new scaling tech for Ethereum Plasma Cash sometime in the near future. And the game itself is actually another win for the Loom Network, which is a organisation we've covered in the past. These guys have a create your own blockchain kind of platform that allows developers to kind of go in with no experience and build a blockchain that they can then apply to their gaming worlds. Loom's been doing a few bits and pieces. Zombie Battlegrounds, I believe, is another Loom project that we've covered before, which was in Kickstarter and did really well, got funded. And they also do the Crypto Zombies experience, which teaches you how to code your own blockchain, which is a free app that if you want to kind of get in there and tinker with the Solidity engine and learn how to kind of code in the blockchain, Crypto Zombies will help you do that. So the Loom Network has been building a decent profile. It's not quite up there with Engine, we've seen who are being a bit more on the front foot, but Loom's definitely in the conversation and building a reasonably quality, solid product, and the games that we're seeing coming out of it are looking really good. We do have a small trailer of the battle mode in action just to show you what it's like, what the game's like as well. So enjoy this and we'll catch you in a sec.
Axie Infinity is a game centered around collecting, raising, breeding and battling beautiful pets called Axies, with ownership secured on the Ethereum blockchain. Now you can show everyone your battling skills in the Axie Infinity arena. 3 vs 3 dynamic battles powered by the Loom network, coming soon.
So I don't know what it's like where you are in the world, but here in Sydney, Australia, property prices are crazy. So here's an alternative for you. MegaCryptoPolis, which is going to go down as one of the most annoying names for a game that I've come across in a while. It is hard to say, and I can't believe I just got it right. Now, it's kind of like a SimCity style experience, except that each of the little blocks of land, each little grid of land in this big kind of open world is purchasable by players. It's all listed on the blockchain and it can all be bought by the people playing the game. Once you've owned this particular block of land, you can start kind of receiving rent or taxes from those people who then move in around you. So as you buy a block of land, the spots that are around your block of land, when they get sold, you get a cut of that sale. And this kind of concept allows you to kind of populate this MMO style experience where everyone owns a bit of land. Now, they've kind of leveled that up over the last week by introducing the ability to build buildings. Now, buildings can be kind of residential or commercial or kind of landmarks, and how you kind of reinvest, I guess, the kind of taxes that you earn from having land in the first place into building up these kind of constructing these buildings and making these buildings bigger and upgrading them kind of defines how much influence you have in the world, and that influence gives you points, and those points kind of determine how much of the overall income the game is making that you get a cut of. That's my understanding, at least. Anyway, at the top of the buildings, you can actually start to own entire districts if you go big enough. So you can kind of own lots of blocks of land in an area and own a particular district and have a particular influence over it like this, right? I like the idea that you can kind of reinvest the money that you kind of earn by buying a block of land back into the game. That's kind of like this kind of a property feel to it. The idea that you can kind of come in low and kind of get this in-game currency, which is a real world. You can trade it in and out of the game, but then use it to kind of grow within the game world and kind of build this kind of relationship with the other players that are also building around you. I do hope that it ends up going even deeper than it currently is. It'd be interesting if you had to manage your district. Like, do you have to handle traffic and sewerage and electricity and power that we've seen in some of the best kind of city builders over the years? And would that kind of encourage players to specialise in certain areas? So you might be the guy who kind of decides to buy a block of land that's required to put up a big power plant and then run the power to the other neighbourhoods, and doing that you might be able to get a cut. So are they going to go deeper with that and really kind of level on all the kind of things that we see in modern society and keep a city running? That would be really interesting to me. And are they going to have natural disasters? So is like a tornado going to come through and stuff everything up for you? I don't know. I highly doubt it, considering there's real money involved here though, but still, that'd be interesting. Now, note, and I'm about to show you a bit of footage of the game, but I want you to take note that there's a 2D version of the game, which is kind of their initial release of it, which is out now, and a 3D version of the game, which is coming down the track, probably when they get more funding, which is what the trailer looks like. So if you do go and jump into MegaCryptoPolis, see, I said it twice right, then you may be disappointed when you first see the visuals. However, there's obviously got an interesting roadmap here. They are building to something that looks pretty cool, and the concept they're kind of going in and with lots of other players and building a world together and making it sustainable is definitely intriguing. And I hope it kind of gets a bit of an audience and we can see what that type of play experience is like. Okay, check out the footage of the 3D version of MegaCryptoPolis.
Building of the world's largest crypto megapolis starts this summer. Acquire blocks of land on the decentralized city map and construct a building to raise its value. Collect taxes in Ether every day after the game starts. Construct signature buildings to get to the top of global leaderboards. Every game asset is the ERC-721 token that can be transferred or traded like any other cryptocurrency. Getting a district grants you a revenue share from all the blocks within it. Join early at MegaCryptoPolis.com. Decentralized megapolis building starts this summer.
All right, there you go, city building in the blockchain generation. Now, onto our fourth news story here, and this one is from a company that you probably haven't heard of, Cocos or Cocos. I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce it. However, you've no doubt heard of Angry Birds. So Cocos are this Beijing-based middleware provider, and in 2008 they came out with this middleware engine called Cocos 2DX, and these guys were picked up by a lot of the guys in the mobile development scene who were coming into it at that time. That's kind of like when the iPhone was just kind of just getting cracking. And these guys provided a open source middleware solution that a lot of these big guys use. So we're talking Angry Birds, Clash of Kings, Badlands. It's still even used now by the likes of Square with their Final Fantasy games, and Namco with One Piece, and so it's one of the most ingrained mobile developers. In fact, they've got 1.1 million developers who are using this engine you never heard of from Beijing. So there you go. There's big guys out there, big guys out there. So they now have announced that they're working on a new platform which is called Cocos BCX. Now the Cocos BCX platform is going to be a same thing, a middleware option for mobile developers. However, it is going to be built to use blockchain. So these guys who have a major influence in the world are now bringing blockchain gaming into their ecosystem, which is extremely exciting. The engine will focus on in-game scarcity and in-game economies. So therefore, it's going to be about kind of, I guess, that idea of being ownership and how much of the ownership of your items is worth. The engine's going to focus on maximizing that. Therefore, it will also maximize the secondary market, or at least facilitate it in some way. And the in-game economy thing is what we're kind of seeing across all the blockchain games. Is why not? You're there doing it. You need some sort of economy that go in and out of the world, and that's what we're seeing with crypto. So as I said, it's a really big deal because these guys have such major influence already. They've already got big name developers involved with their engine, familiar with their engine, and all of a sudden those 1.1 million developers are going to be able to walk straight into an environment in which blockchain is natively available. There is a chain called the Cocos chain, which will be the kind of basic, I guess, building block that developers will use to create their blockchain gaming using this engine. And to add to all of that, the whole engine solution here, Cocos BCX, has been extremely well funded. So the news that's just come out of the company in the last couple of days is that it's received US $40 million worth of funding to help get this thing off the ground into the hands of these developers. One of the bigger funders in that is Binance, a major exchange for the cryptocurrency world, and also a name that we're seeing come up frequently with the sponsorship or the funding of game-related products. So Binance is obviously a believer in what blockchain gaming can do for the overall cryptocurrency space. That's a major exchange with a major amount of traffic and volume going through it. So those guys now have an incentive as well to push any of the tokens or coins that go public out of the blockchain gaming space, which is another big win for the overall blockchain gaming space. And it's good for these guys because Binance have the money and they have the influence and they're now involved. Now, as we mentioned at the top there, these guys have worked on a couple of major games. One of the games that you may have missed is Badlands from Frogmine indie developer. This is kind of similar mechanics to the way that Flappy Bird works, you know, where you kind of touch the screen and it just moves through the world. However, it's way more immersive, got really good visuals, got great sound, looks amazing on a Retina screen. There is a console version out now as well. And on top of that, there's some interesting puzzle solving mechanics in it as well. So I thought I would just show you a trailer of the sequel, which is recently released. So you can just see what that's like and what this engine is capable of already before it got US $40 million worth of funding. Check it out, Badlands 2. Okay, and that's Badland, and if you haven't caught it yet, I'd highly recommend checking it out. It's a really good game, especially on mobile. Nice and easy to play on the go. Okay, on to our final news piece for the day, and that's Lordmancer 2, which is a mobile MMORPG. Now, you were probably very unlikely to have heard of Lordmancer 1, which was just Lordmancer, of course. It came out in 2008, it was a Java-based game, and it was massively popular in Brazil and Russia. So unless you live in Brazil and Russia, you probably haven't heard it. And you're probably not speaking the language I am right now anyway. So what this, there's a sequel coming out, Lordmancer 2. It's much more mainstream. It's hitting Android, and also there's an iOS version in the works, although I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second because I've got question marks over whether it'll get released. But either way, it's a mobile game. It reminds me a bit of, like, say, the Banner Saga meets World of Warcraft. Even reminded me a little bit of the old Warlords games, if you're old like me and you remember those, or Heroes of Might and Magic. It's a bit like that. So some of the kind of base features of this, you can play individually, but most likely you want to be part of a clan, part of a group. You're going to explore this kind of big open world. There's 15 giant lands in this world to explore. You're seeking out rare items to kit yourself out. You're defeating bad dudes. You're trading with other players. And ultimately saving the world. There's also some PvP, which I'll go into a bit more depth in a sec because it's really interesting. In terms of the actual gameplay, we're looking at a real-time world here, so you are exploring this large open world in real time with other players moving around. But when you enter combat, you enter to a turn-based grid-style combat, which that's where it kind of feels a bit Banner Saga-y to me. Like I said, there's 15 lands, there's 18 unique units, 6 different classes, 3 different races. Dungeons, quests, and all this kind of cool stuff that we're used to expecting in a really good MMORPG. It's all here. Now, where it gets really interesting is the way that you fight as a clan to own territory inside the land. So there's castles, there's minimal amount of castles, and you as a group need to take these castles and hold these castles amongst all your other questing and activities. There's also territory to be gained, and also resource mines to be gained. And the way that you kind of work as a group, as a clan to own these places is obviously a big part of the fun of being part of this world. That's kind of PvPing on a level that we don't usually see with a lot of MMORPGs, especially mobile MMORPGs, and definitely puts this game on the radar for me. Now, where the blockchain and cryptocurrency is coming to this is the players can now use Lord coins, will be able to use, Lord coins to actively engage in a secondary market. So a lot of developers know that a secondary market exists, but they may not actually be actively pushing it. That's not the case with Lordmancer 2. So they've got their in-game currency, which is crystals, which is what you do with the classic in-game buying and selling of goods to merchants and everything like that. And then on top of that, you've got the Lord coins, which can go in and out of the game world, be traded for real cash. But in the actual secondary market, this is what they're encouraging the secondary market and the use of these Lord coins. So players, they hope, will end up going and farming really cool rare items and then flooding that into the market. The developer will take a 20% cut of anything that sells and then burn 10% of that straight away to kind of create a bullish market there with the Lord coins and kind of keep it from being flooded at any one point and dropping in value. It's great to see a developer actively encouraging the secondary market. I think this will be the way that all developers go in the next couple of years, because as I've spoken about on this show before, there's a $50 million market out there for secondary items that aren't being exploited at all, really. It's all kind of off-the-grid black market stuff. So it's good to see a developer embracing it, encouraging it, pushing it, and allowing people who invest their time in the game to potentially make a bit of money out of it, or at least kind of have fun with it. Like I said, it's a nice looking product. The world itself has a kind of World of Warcraft feel about it. Nice, bright, colourful world. The game moves quite well, plays quite well from what I can see. It's built for, first up for mobile as well, so it should function quite well. Now, the bit I mentioned before at the top about whether it'll actually release on iOS or not is that the game does encourage mining. So as you're playing, you'll be mining these Lord coins, and this will kind of give you the currency to spend in or out of the game. So Apple has come out recently and banned all on-device mining. So that means that for this game to actually allow itself to work on iOS, any mining that's involved in upholding the Lord coins will have to occur off-device. So some sort of centralized server or something like that, which isn't the ideal way in which these games can run. This is another classic example of why Apple went too far in just banning it outright, why there is a grey area in this particular concept, because there are developers out there making great games and being transparent about the fact that some of the power of the mobile device will be used to uphold the blockchain and mine the cryptocurrency, and you can volunteer to be part of that or not be part of that and play the game. The fact that Apple is not going to allow a game like this to work as it's originally envisaged is, I think, a scar against Apple's name. But, you know, there's obviously the negative sides that Apple's also dealing with there. So they definitely need to reapproach that blanket-wide ban and work out a way in which games like this can certainly work. I hope it makes it to iOS. I'd say this is the reason why it's not on iOS yet. But they are still testing it, so they're obviously actively believing that they can get the game out, and perhaps they have worked on some off-device mining solution that will make it work all the same. And that is the end of another big episode of Video Games and the Blockchain. I'm really stoked you guys could join me. I really hope you can join me next week for another big episode. Make sure you check us out on all our social channels and get involved. Give us some comments, let us know what you want to see. Do let us know if you find anything out there in the blockchain gaming space you want us to dive into, maybe even sort out an interview for. Before we leave though, we're going to show you just a bit of Lordmancer 2 so you can see how the game looks and all the action that you can get into when the game finally releases on iOS. It's already out on Android now. Okay, thanks for joining us.